Hello, my beautiful people. Hey loves, it's your girl Adorn Jamani. Welcome back to a next episode of Affairs of the Heart, Adorn Speaks. If you're new here, hi, this is a safe place where we heal and become our better selves together. If you're new here, I'm Adorn Jamani and this is my podcast, Adorn Speaks. This is episode I think it's episode 4, if I'm not wrong, of Affairs of the Heart, and this is Fair Part 2. It's just a continuation from last week's episode, and yeah, let's get into this juiciness. Okay, guys, last week we were talking about for the whole episode we were talking about David, but last week specifically we were talking about fear, and we talked about how Saul was afraid, and we talked about how fear comes in when we're trying to live up to the expectations of others. Well, for this week I want to get into this juiciness. I'm going to read a scripture because I already knew what I wanted to come on here and talk about, but while I was having my me time with me and God in my worship time, I got this scripture and I really feel like God wanted me to talk about this. I'm pretty sure he wanted me to start with this and then flow into it. So the scripture is in 1 Samuel 16, and it's talking about it's still talking about David and Saul's story. So let's get into it. Oh Lord. Okay, let's get into it. First Samuel 16. I'm going to read all of the chapter. I'm going to do it really fast. Don't worry, it's not going to be long. Now the Lord said to Samuel, "How long will you mourn for Saul? See, I have rejected him from reigning over Israel. Fill your horn with oil and go. I am sending you to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have provided myself a king among his sons." And Samuel said, "How can I go? If Saul hears it, he'll kill me." But the Lord said, "Take a heifer with you and say, 'I have come to sacrifice to the Lord.' Then invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show you what you shall do. You shall anoint for me the one I name to you." So Samuel did what the Lord said and went to Bethlehem. And the elders of the town trembled at his coming and said, "Do you come peaceably?" And he said, "Peaceably I have come." I hope I'm pronouncing that right. "Peaceably I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Sanctify yourselves and come with me to the sacrifice." Then he consecrated Jesse and his sons and invited them to the sacrifice. So it was when they came that he looked at Eliab, I would say, or Eliab, I don't know, and said, "Surely the Lord's anointed is before him." But the Lord said to Samuel, "Do not look at his appearance or at his physical stature, or I would say structure, because I have refused him. For the Lord does not see as man sees, for man look at the outer appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." So Jesse called Abandab, and I hope I'm pronouncing it right, and made him pass before Samuel. And he said, "Neither has the Lord chosen this one." Then Jesse made Shammah passed by, and he said, "Neither has the Lord chosen this one." Thus Jesse made 7 of his sons pass before Samuel. And Samuel said to Jesse, "The Lord has not chosen these." And Samuel said to Jesse, "Are all the men here?" Then he said, "There remains yet the youngest, and there he is keeping the sheep." And Samuel said to Jesse, "Send and bring him, for he will not sit down till he comes here." So he went and brought him in. Now he was ruddy, I would say, or ruddy, with bright eyes and good looking. And the Lord said, "Arise, anoint him, for this is the one." Then Samuel took his horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brothers. And the Spirit of God came upon David from that day forward. So Samuel arose and went to Ramah. We're almost there, guys. But the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul. So like I was saying, Saul was king, right? And I was telling you guys that the same Samuel, God had said Samuel to anoint Saul, but because Saul was trying to please other people, he was trying to please the people of Israel. He didn't do things according to how God wanted. He did it according to how the people wanted. So he was a people pleaser. So God withdrew his spirit from him, right? Let me read it like the Bible said. But the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and a distressing spirit from the Lord troubled him, right? And Saul's servant said to him, "Surely a distressing spirit from God is troubling you. Let our master now command your servants who are before you to seek a man who is skillful playing on the harp." Excuse me. And it shall be that he will play with his hand when the distressing spirit from God is upon you. You shall be well. Okay. So Saul said to his servants, "Provide me now a man who can play well, and bring him to me." Then one of the servants answered and said, "Look, I have seen a son of Jesse the Bethlehemite, who is skillful in playing, a mighty man of valor. A man of war, prudent in speech, meaning him talk good, and a handsome person, and the Lord is with him." Who y'all think the man is? The look good, mighty man of valor, the man of war, we can talk good and handsome. Verse 19. Then Saul sent messengers to Jesse and said, "Send me to your son David, who is with the sheep." And Jesse took a donkey loaded with bread, a skin of wine, a young goat, and sent them by his son David to Saul. So David came to Saul and stood before him, and he loved him greatly, and he became his armor bearer. For those of you who don't know, armor bearer is basically like an assistant or a right hand person, like someone who is your right hand. If you guys go to church, you know that an armor bearer, a pastor would have an armor bearer, someone who, while they're preaching, the person would pray for them, back them, and stuff like that. And people have assistants who, like, basically, like, you would have a president, a vice president, then someone who is their second, who helped them and stuff like that. So David actually became Saul's second, his armor bearer. But this was after God had anointed him as king, which Saul didn't know. But that's it. This isn't, it's like we haven't even reached what I really want to dig into. So let's continue. Then Saul sent to Jesse, saying, Please let David stand before me, for he found favor in my sight. And so it was, whenever the Spirit from God was upon Saul, that David would take a harp and play it with his hand. Then Saul would become refreshed and well, and the distressing spirit would depart from him. Now, let's talk about this. And then I'll tell you how it's connected to affairs of the heart. So, let me explain what I just read. So, like I was telling you, that Saul, God anointed him as king, but when he was in his kingship, when he was on the throne, he wasn't doing things according to how God wanted. He was doing it because he wanted to please the people, right? He feared that he wouldn't live up to the standards of the Israelites, right? And he's forgetting that the Israelites weren't the one who anointed him as king. It was God who anointed him as king. Hence, he should have been listening to God, but he wasn't listening to God. So God said, you know what? Since as you're not listening to me, since as you're not leaning on me, since as you're not trying to please me, you're pleasing man because of fear, I am going to get somebody else. So he sent and he got Samuel to anoint David, right? Now, when David was anointed, that spirit, right, that spirit of God that was with Saul left. Right? I personally think it had been left, but you know, whoever wrote the Bible or whatever, remember these stories were told to them and they just wrote based on what they heard or whatever. I think the Spirit of God, or let me not say it left him instantly, I think it gradually left. Like, for example, in our lives, when we give into fear and when we give into like those negative emotions, we feel less and less happy, we feel less and less joyful, we feel less and less peace, because we're giving into anger, we're giving into jealousy, we're giving into fear. So it's the same thing that happened with Saul. He was giving into fear, he was giving into pleasing people, right? And that caused him to be distressed. I think that in this it said God cause a distressing spirit to come on him. What I think that means, because we have to remember that the Bible, it wasn't in English, right? It was translated into this, and some words, like, I don't know if you guys ever took Spanish or other language. Some words, like when you translate it, it comes out one way in the English form, but in the actual language form, the word means something different. So, you can have the in Spanish. I don't know what the in Spanish is, honestly, but the in Spanish could maybe, for example, maybe mean something else pertaining. It depends on the sentence. So here, when it says that God caused a distressing spirit to come upon Saul, it's not that God it's not that God sent the distressing spirit. It's the fact that where he isn't, there is no peace. So where God is love, God is peace. God brings joy. So where he isn't, there will not be any peace. There will not be any joy. He is light. The opposite of light is darkness. So if light is not in this room, if I should take away these lights, if I should turn off these lights, it's going to be darkness. So it's the same thing that happened to Saul. When the Spirit of God came from him, a distressing spirit came on to him because God was not with him, because he was busy giving into fear. He was busy giving into pleasing other people. And that's how anger come, right? That's how sadness come, where it all leads back to what I've been saying for this entire podcast, right? The reason why we struggle with anxiety, the reason why we struggle with the spirit of fear, the reason why we're not happy, the reason why we're angry is because we want to be in control. It's because we're trying to please man. We're trying to live up to the expectations of man. And it's because we're not giving everything over to God, and it's very hard. Next thing I wanted to point out that was said in this same scripture, he got David, coincidentally, the person who the spirit of kingship went on to David. He's the same person that Saul found, right? That Saul found to sing to him, to make him feel better. I feel like that is very symbolic. So if you have, or you have been given into fear, if you have been given into anger, if you have been given into sadness, if you had been given into pleasing people, and you don't feel joy, you don't feel peace, you don't feel happiness, go into the presence of God. Listen, Adorn Jamani, Adorn Speaks, or go listen to a worship song. Go listen to something. Try to surround yourself with joy. Try to surround yourself with light until that light can seep into you, right? And if you're someone who is not struggling with anger, if you're someone who is not struggling with, you're a joyful person, you're a jovial person, and you have love, and go out and try to spread that with other people. There's this saying what that people say, birds of a feather flock together, and I feel like that word can work both ways. Yes, if you surround yourself with, if you're weak and you surround yourself with depression and depressed people, and you give into it and you give into that, you're going to become depressed, and they're going to weigh you down. But if you're strong and you're steadfast and you're leaning onto God, you can go in and surround yourself with people who are depressed and be their light, and until they themselves become light too. But you have to be strong. God, he was God. Jesus, when God came on earth as man, he surrounded himself with sinners and taught them the way, and he brought light to them. So this is the end of Affairs of the Heart. This is the last video of Affairs of the Heart. The whole point of Affairs of the Heart is not to let your emotions override you, or not to give in to anger, not to give in to sadness. And the only way that we can do that, because to be honest, there is going to be a day where you're going to feel off. There's going to be a day when you feel sad. There can be a whole week where you feel sad. But the whole thing that's important is for you to get up and Go into the presence of God. Say, God, this is the situation. This is what I'm going through. I'm giving it over to you. Or say, God, oh, what should I do? And actually listen or actually wait. Because sometimes I myself I do it sometimes because we're all humans, but the thing is to do is to catch yourself and be like, didn't I give this over to God? Why am I worrying about this? It's like you'll be going through something or something will happen and you'll be like, God, I'm giving this over to you. I'm trusting you. I'm placing this in your hand. And then 5 seconds after, you pick it up back and you put it back in your head and you start worrying about it. You have to catch yourself and be like, didn't I give this over to God? And I think that's the most important thing when you give it over to God. This is the end of Adorn Speaks, Affairs of the Heart. I hope you guys enjoy this week's episode. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And if you want the audio version, because I have the audio version of every podcast, it's Adorn Speaks. You guys can check it out on Amazon Music, on iTunes, on Apple Podcasts, on Radio Public, on Spotify. I'm going to leave all the links to that in the description box. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Share this video with someone who is who wants to be in control, who's a control freak and don't want to give things over to God. Share it with them. Share it with someone who's struggling with depression. Share it with someone who's struggling with anxiety. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Until next time.
One girl, one leap, love, one leap ahead. Oh, I love the streets, keep me up my